Hello and happy Wednesday to all of our followers on the Vice Media webinar today. Thank you for taking time out of your schedules to join us. Those of you who are listening afterwards on the recording, we welcome you as well. And thank you for taking time to listen to the information that's being provided. My name is Chad Erickson. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Business Development at Advice Media and one of the owners and founders here. And we've been doing this now for the past couple of years, and we continue to see more and more attendees at our webinars every single month. And so we honor you for taking time to do that and to look for ways to better your practice and look for any input you have of messages you would like to hear in the future as well. As we get started today, let me just outline our format, especially for those of you who are new or this is maybe your first time here. We absolutely welcome your comments or questions, and I am going to be the moderator for our webinar. So if you do have any, I invite you to add those or submit those via our dashboard. I'm going to go to webinar control panel, and I will receive those, and then I'll keep that running list of questions so that our presenter today, Ms. Mara Shore, can answer those at the end of her presentation. I'm excited to welcome our guest today, Mara Shore. Mara has become not only a colleague, but a friend and someone that I have the utmost respect for. I have seen her present. I know how much she cares for her clients. The message that she has and the things that she works on so diligently are second to none. And so it's my pleasure to welcome her today. Thank her for taking time to be with us and to share this message. And I love this title. She and I were discussing what is the message that needs to get out today, and felt that, you know, this millennial patient is different. Not good nor bad, that's a neutral statement, but how do we entice them? How do we understand how they think? And Mara has very good insight into that generation, which she'll be able to share. Let me go ahead and introduce formally Mara to the entire audience here today. So Mara Shore is a partner and vice president of marketing and business development for Shore Solutions, bringing more than a decade of marketing and communications experience to Shore Solutions clients. She's a level 2 through 12 certified aesthetic consultant, utilizing knowledge and skills from her previous positions in marketing for 2 separate leading dermatology, cosmetic, and plastic surgery practices located in South Florida. And Mara, there's not a lot of competition down there, I hear, for plastic surgeons and dermatologists.
No, not
wink,
at all.
Yeah, she's no stranger to the startup world. Mara founded and ran the Leone Company, a marketing and communication relations firm based in Orlando, until she joined Shore Solutions in 2012. Focusing on both internal and client strategies in traditional and new media, Mara is a public speaker, having served on faculty for the American Society of Cosmetic Physicians, the American Society of Plastic Surgery, the International Master Course of Aging Science, Vegas Cosmetic Surgery, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, the Aesthetic Show, the Aesthetic Academy, the Medical Entrepreneur Symposium, and the Aesthetic Show's Certified Aesthetic Consultant Program. She also serves as an editor and contributor for several magazines and industry publications. And I'll add also that Mara is actually an amazing gardener. I've seen the fruits of her labors, and I know she loves that hobby. But again, without further ado, Mara, thank you, and it's my pleasure to welcome you today.
Thank you so much, Chad. That's why it's always fun to have someone that's not only a colleague but a friend introduce you, because they have that ability to add in some of those fabulous personal facts as well. So I always love that, and Chad and I always get to discuss our gardening tips whenever we're together. So yes,
mine are nowhere near yours. Yes.
Yes, I am, as Chad said, the Vice President of Marketing and Business Development, as well as a partner in Shore Solutions. And we are a practice management consulting firm based here in Florida, but with clients across the United States and with a few clients in Canada. And we focus on the cosmetic and aesthetic market, the cosmetic and aesthetic medical market. And so truly, we help practices across the country save time and save money. And we take care of a lot of the business side of medicine that doctors and providers, their practice administrators, their patient coordinators just simply don't have time to get to, or they need coaching as far as how to handle situations better. So that is just a quick moment about who I am, what our company does. And so because we focus so much on the cosmetic and aesthetic medical market, we know that this presentation is really going to be focused to enticing the millennial patient within the cosmetic and aesthetic and plastic surgery market. So really that's what we're going to focus on today, not focusing on enticing the millennial patient when it comes to pulmonary or cardio. This is what we're going to focus on. So for those of you that may not be aware, the millennial generation was born somewhere between 1980 and 1999. I myself fall right in that older millennial, as far as I was born in 1983. So although thanks to the joy of having great providers that I know, I've been told I look just a little bit younger than that. So it pays to know good people. There are some people that have said that there is a micro generation called a zennial, if you've heard that, and that is a micro generation that falls somewhere between 1980 and 1984 or so. That this generation falls somewhere between the Gen X and the millennial mindset. But overall, we're talking about this is where the millennial generation falls in. And we're going to talk about the millennial patient, not necessarily the millennial staffer, because that's a whole other discussion. So just so we're clear, this is the generation that we're talking about today. Now, in the days of yore, there were really, people weren't looking at bringing in a patient that was in their 20s or in their 30s. In years past, truly, we were looking at a more mature patient, and we were looking at a patient that was really the age the Gen X and baby boomer patients are today. However, people and patients are getting procedures earlier and earlier than they ever did before. There are a number of reasons about why that's the case. And so we're going to go over a few of those because you really need to understand why the generation is really now getting into these procedures earlier than ever before. Number one, there have been changes in technology and innovations that provide more services than ever before to younger patients. So now that injectables are becoming bigger and bigger market, and there is more and more education about them, people are able to not necessarily just get a facelift, for instance. They're able to stave off wrinkles at a much earlier age. So there's a lot more preventative treatments, and there's a lot of injectables that really are applicable to a younger market. So maybe somebody might be a runner, and so they have a little bit of that runner's face, and so they're looking to plump up certain aspects of their face. It could be that there is a neuromodulator or neurotoxin, whether it's Botox, Xeomin, or Dysport, that they're looking to receive a treatment earlier than before. Maybe they're looking to receive something to help treat with hyperhidrosis. That didn't necessarily, when you're talking about 20, 25 years ago, that wasn't necessarily something that was being used. These are being used for TMJ as well. So looking at that, let alone laser treatments, RF devices, laser hair reduction / laser hair removal is a procedure that patients are able to get much younger. And truly, it's much more affordable to have some of these treatments than to have a full-on surgery. So the introduction of new procedures is certainly something that is available earlier and more affordable than it ever was before. And then we have technology, right? So as we're speaking of technology, we want to keep in mind people are looking at themselves more than ever before thanks to smartphones. Now, what's happening is that people are taking many, many, many selfies and they're sharing them on social media. And so then they're going back on their social media channels and they're looking at themselves. They're analyzing. They're coming in and they then are analyzing and they're saying, well, but I see that this is drooping. I don't love my double chin. I'm looking at this photo of myself in a bathing suit, where it used to be that if you took your photos to the drugstore or the supermarket, you had them printed, your vacation photos, you stuck them in a photo album, you tucked it away on a shelf, and maybe you took it out now and then. Now you're looking at these photos of yourself over and over again. So you're noticing if there's a bulge when you put on a bathing suit, because you're looking at this. Your photos are being shared more than ever before. And so patients are more and more aware of how they look. And as they're analyzing these photos, they're now really constructing more and more things that they want to have done themselves. It's also becoming more and more of an issue as far as filters, right? So where different filters are available, for instance, Instagram, Snapchat, and those are really where the bulk of millennials are and where this filtered sharing takes place. Facebook, the Facebook demographic and the Facebook user tends to skew a little bit older. Millennials are using Instagram and Snapchat, and those are truly their preferred social media venues at this point. And so what's happening is that they're taking photos themselves and they're realizing what it is that they want to be filtered. And we see this more and more where our clients have people coming to them and saying, I want to look like this filtered version of myself. And our clients are getting more and more business because of this reason. So you truly want to be aware of what people's expectations are when you're talking not only with a millennial patient, but you're talking with the with a Gen X patient of any age, but you also want to make sure you're monitoring patient expectations. Oh, celebrities. We have the Kardashians to thank for a good part of this. We have a whole other host of celebrities that are more and more open than ever before about the procedures that they've had. This is no longer a secret. When a celebrity has a procedure, they shout it from the rooftops. Some of them actually go and they are, whether they're Snapchatting during the procedure, whether they're posting the video afterwards, whether they're posting their before and after photos. But since celebrities have started doing this, now more and more the general public is comfortable doing this. And so where it used to be that people tried to keep their procedures under wraps, and somebody might get a facelift and say, oh no, I just went away to a health spa and I came back looking refreshed, and nobody but maybe that person's husband knew that they had gone and had a procedure done. Now people are open with it and celebrities are talking about this. Now that they're talking about it, the general public wants to know what it is that they've had done, and they want to have those procedures done too. And so since it's becoming more and more common and more talked about, these procedures are just becoming more and more popular. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how changes in social media have changed how practices are able to reach the social media savvy generation, because truly the millennial generation and the early Gen Xers and young Gen Xers are far more tech savvy than the majority of the more mature, we'll say a more mature Generation X, as well as a baby boomer. Now, I have to say, my grandmother was in her 80s and loved Facebook, right? So I am by no means saying that there aren't people outside of this age bracket that are social media savvy. However, we know that millennials and early Gen Xers love social media. Generation Z, which is the generation that is younger than the millennials, do as well. However, that 12-year-old that loves being on Snapchat is not our target demographic for the sake of this conversation. So we're going to talk about changes in social media and how that's affected how practices can reach millennials. We know that there are a number of options available. So those range from Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and more, right? So we want to look at how are YouTube and Google Plus and all of these different outlets affecting and give you the ability as a practice to bring in and really entice this millennial patient, right? So you want to take a look at what does your marketing mix include in regards to social media, and how can you think about possibly using those avenues to bring in more millennial patients. You want to know what works for your audiences and what millennial patients are looking for. So I personally, and at our company, we say that Twitter is not necessarily where you want to be focusing your efforts. Not because millennials aren't on Twitter, they certainly are, but because that's not where patients are going in this industry to find their provider. You're not going to try and sell someone in 140 characters or less, and that's not the place to focus your efforts. Facebook, while there are millennials on Facebook, like I said, it's not as much the preferred way, although the problem too with Facebook is that if you try and do this organically, meaning without putting some money behind sponsored posts, there's a really smaller chance that you're going to get a good amount of people actually viewing your posts. So you want to keep that in mind. And if you are going to use Facebook to put out information about your practice to focus on millennials, then I would consider putting a little bit of money behind sponsored posts. When it comes to Instagram and Snapchat, as I said before, that's where the millennials are. So I would especially that we are a visual business, right? So we really have, I mean, great before and afters. A vascular practice, perhaps, right? Perhaps that could be where you would, you'd want to put some before and afters if that's actually visual, but I wouldn't recommend this for a cardiology practice. I wouldn't necessarily say that for a psychology practice, they have to focus on Instagram and Snapchat, but really, we are such a beauty business that the before and after results are so visual. That's where you want to be focusing. Also, making sure that you do include video in all of these channels, including YouTube. You want to make sure that you're working on building a YouTube channel, and that works for Google optimization with your search engine optimization results. And I'm going to say this a few times throughout the presentation, but if you have questions about any of the social media components and you are an advice media client, go ahead and talk to your team, your advice media team, and ask them about your social media package. Do you have a package with them? Can they perform an analysis for you? Is there something that you want to tweak? We have a couple of clients that are using social media and they are using advice media for the website. And so, especially a few clients that are launching brand new packages with them now. And so I know firsthand how that process goes. And you really, if you reach out to your advice media team, they can help you with that. So I don't want to spend too much time on that when that's something that your advice team can help you with. However, when you're using these channels, you want to make sure that you are remaining HIPAA compliant when communicating with your patients. Now, the majority of these channels are not necessarily HIPAA compliant, and that means that somebody else, if any of these channels are hacked into, then someone has your patient information. And therefore, I would not recommend talking about patient complications with your patients over these channels. I wouldn't recommend necessarily working through all the details of scheduling an appointment with these social media channels. What I would say is use them to generate leads, and then pick up the phone and call to schedule an appointment. Or if you have an online scheduler, give the patient the link to go ahead and utilize an online scheduler that works with your system. But don't be communicating back and forth on your social media channels when it comes to any information that comes under the HIPAA umbrella. If you don't know what follows and what falls under the HIPAA umbrella, feel free to contact myself, feel free to contact your healthcare attorney. So you want to make sure that that is the case. Also, for any photos that you are posting on social media, and I can't say this enough, make sure you have patient consents that specifically say you are able to post those patients before and after photos, not only on your website, but on social media channels, because you want to make sure you have it in writing that you're able to share the before and after photos. I can't stress this enough. If you need a copy of that form, feel free to contact me, but if you, again, contact your healthcare attorney, but I can't stress this enough. You need to remain HIPAA compliant. As you're including your before and after photos on your social media sites, and again, make sure that you have the consent forms, but I like to make sure that you also, if your practice is a practice that is looking to bring in both men and women, because men are interested in cosmetic and aesthetic procedures more than ever before. It is no longer seen as wimpy or something that men would never dream of to get, whether it's injectables, whether it's to get liposuction, to a rhinoplasty. Men are becoming more and more a part of the patient population, especially at a younger age than they ever used to before. So if you do want to look at bringing in male patients, then you need to look at including photos of both genders on your social media. That also goes for your website. So if you are looking to bring in the millennial patient, which you're on this webinar, so I have to assume that that's something you're interested in, make sure that you're featuring photos of millennials on your website. If you want millennials and Gen Xers and baby boomers, make sure that you include photos of all of those generations on your social media and your website, and if you're still doing a print ad campaign, any of your marketing mix. And I ultimately encourage you as well, something is just as an exercise, go through your marketing channels and look at how many photos do you have of each of the different age brackets? How many photos do you have of each of the genders? How many photos do you have of different racial backgrounds? So you want to make sure that your patients can see themselves in your marketing material. And so that's age, gender, and nationality. Make sure that they can see themselves in that. And that's incredibly important on all accounts for they can see themselves in that. I cannot urge this enough. Utilize video that someone in your practice has taken, or that a professional has come in and taken, but customized video for your marketing channels. So, stock imagery. And it's okay to have some stock videos from vendors, but the more you can customize your material on all channels, the better. So your Instagram story, look, it's a great place to include a 15-second quick question and answer, or take a poll, but those customized videos that you're able to produce. Also, you're going to run into this sooner or later, and we have more and more clients that are running into this. So I wanted to add this as well. As you're asked by patients if they can take photo or video on their phone during the procedure. Now, there's many schools of thought on this, and I'm not necessarily saying one is right or one is wrong, but what we tell our clients is that they should take that photo or video on the practice's device, whether it's an iPad, whether it's an iPhone, whatever that, or pick your tablet or smartphone of choice. It could be a digital camera, but the practice takes that photo, takes that video, and then gets that over to the patient. And then the patient is able to post that on their own social channel. And I say this because, number one, you don't want the patient distracted by somebody else, a family friend, or themselves trying to take a selfie while you're trying to inject, while you're trying to perform a treatment. And if, for whatever reason, something goes wrong during that moment, it could be that it's completely out of your out of your control. The patient may have had too much to drink the night before, and therefore they're bleeding heavier than normal. It could be that they ask a friend or family member to be in the room and take the video, and we've had this happen at one of our practices. Luckily, it wasn't live video, but as soon as the needle and the syringe came out, the friend that was taking the video actually passed out at the very sight of this, right? He couldn't take it, he passed out. And so that would have been on live camera. So I encourage you should have control over that media and not necessarily have that on, on your social or on someone else's social media, and it's out of your control. So I would encourage you to utilize video, for both social media and websites. And you can also talk with the Advice Media team for a few other ideas on how to put video on your procedure pages or how to include it on social media. So we help clients with this all the time, and I know that Advice Media does as well. Make sure that your staff also have signed your internal social media policies. So while this doesn't necessarily just have to do with the millennial patient, I want to make sure that I include this in here as we talk about you and your staff posting on social media. We have all of our clients make sure that their staff does sign in an internal social media policy, basically saying what the staff is not allowed to post on behalf of the practice, because we don't want the staff member going into the practice's account posting about politics, posting about religion, posting about things that may be controversial and the practice owner doesn't want that to be posted. So we have forms that we provide to all of our clients for just that, to make sure that there are these internal social media policies. And certainly feel free to connect with me because we have those as well for our clients, but make sure that your clients and your or your staff rather, are signing these internal social media policies about how they can conduct themselves on behalf of you and your practice. So when you are looking to engage in social media and be part of the conversation to entice these millennial patients, there's a couple things that you can do to help you be a part of the conversation. So pick your own hashtag and encourage your patients as they're posting about you, as they're posting your results, as they're posting how excited they are to come in for the procedure. Encourage them to utilize that hashtag. We have a client in South Florida, and he has a hashtag for all of his patients that are excited. They can't wait. They fly in from all over the country, and they have a hashtag that they use to promote that they're about to have surgery from him. And they're incredibly excited, and they've built a whole community amongst themselves. And so they have, with his last name and the word dolls at the end of it. And so he's built this entire community around that, and they've built a whole community around it too. And it just gets everybody more and more excited before the procedure. This is not him chiming in on the conversation, but this is letting patients have this conversation amongst themselves. And encourage new patients to look for that particular hashtag as well. So share with them, this is what you can look up, and this is where you can find what some of the patients have said about me and about my practice. Now, make it easy for patients to come to your practice. So it's no secret to the majority of us that millennial patients have different communication preferences than a baby boomer patient, for instance. And so Generation X tends to fall somewhere in between, but millennial patients don't love to pick up the phone and speak with a person nearly as much as the baby boomers do. And so you, instead of trying to fight that, when you want the millennial patient to come to you, you need to make it easier than ever before to embrace how they communicate and truly offer up these different options. So one of these options is an online chat function. So you want to make sure, number one, you go with a vendor that is HIPAA compliant. And again, I know that Advice Media can assist with a lot of these options. So you're welcome to just contact your Advice Media team leader. You're welcome to contact me. We can, set you up with some different options. But you want to make sure that any of these options that involve patient data do involve HIPAA compliancy. So online chat functions where they can ask quick questions. Sometimes it's that your staff, depending on the service, your staff may be in charge of answering them, but a lot of the services you're able to truly customize and have someone else, that's something you can outsource. And so you're able to take that onus off of your staff. Online store purchases. So they're able to purchase something online. They can go to an online store and purchase the skincare lines that you carry, but they purchase them from you. So instead of going on to another third-party site like Amazon, and we know that there's a lot of reasons we encourage our patients to purchase skincare in particular from us, from the practice itself, instead of Amazon. So what happens typically is that they're looking for, number one, convenience, and number two, price. while we don't encourage our patients to shop on price, we know that they're going to go with a more convenient option. So make it available that they can purchase, whether it's a name brand skincare line or whether it's a private label skincare line, because really we love when our clients have both. So you want to make that easy. Online scheduling, now we find that this works a lot better when our practices don't have an insurance component. Some of the practices we work with still do have an insurance component, and so this tends to just make things a little more trying, so to speak, because you're having to schedule insurance versus cosmetic. However, if you are a purely cosmetic and aesthetic practice that does not take any insurance, I would encourage you to look at what sort of online scheduling component is involved with your system. And if there is a service available, talk with your website provider, talk with your advice media team, and find out how you can put a page on your website to help your patients schedule at whatever hour they choose, but they can make that schedule online. Because a millennial patient is busy, they may be up at 11:30 at night, and that's when they think about it. That's when they're thinking about your practice, and so make it so they can schedule right then and there. Automated appointment reminders. Make life easy on your staff. Make it so that patients can either receive an automated voice reminder by phone, that they can receive an automated HIPAA compliant text message reminder, or an automated email reminder, right? So whether that's through your EMR or it's through a third party, I know of a lot of really great systems out there. So you're more than welcome to speak with me afterwards. But there's a lot of really great systems available to make life easier on your staff. And again, millennials don't love to pick up the phone. So if it comes from a number that they don't know, they may not have your practice's phone number saved in their phone. And so if it comes from a number they don't know, they're going to hit that ignore button on their phone, and you're not going to actually reach them to go ahead and confirm that they have an appointment. And that means you're going to have more missed appointments. So I would really look at an automated appointment reminder system that works with your current EMR. So you also want to make sure that you're not, so to speak, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You don't want to forget the basics when any patient of any age is in your practice. Great customer service from start to finish, and make sure they appear as a team. I have seen over and over again that a practice comes and whether they come to us, whether they come to Advice Media, and they say, my marketing is awful and I need better marketing. So I need you to help me with this. And upon diving deeper, and a practice may come to us and say, I'm an Advice Media client and I feel like they're not doing their job, because we've had these calls. I feel like they're not doing their job and I'm not getting as many appointments as I should, and my schedule's empty, so I can't stand this, and blah, 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 blah. And so we say, okay, we set up a meeting with the website vendor, and again, we've had it with Advice Media before, and we look at, well, says Advice Media, that we're giving you all of these leads. Our SEO is generating leads, you're getting phone calls, you have a great number of contact forms that are being filled out, people are contacting you on your online chat. What happens when they call? And what happens when they pick up the phone? And we realize that the staff is often rude. So the patient is having a really poor front desk experience. And they blame it on the marketing, but it's not the marketing, it's what comes next up. And so it could be that your people are filling out a contact form on your website, and 5 days goes by and that patient hasn't heard from you. 24 hours is too much, really too much time to go by without somebody, especially a prospective patient, but any patient hearing from you. Millennials especially live in a fast-paced world and expect instant gratification. They want strong customer service with a strong front desk team if they do go ahead and pick up the phone to call. And they want instant responses, or as close to instant as possible, if they're filling out a contact us form on your website. Because if they don't get what they're looking for, they're going to move on to the next practice that is going to treat them well and with respect. So you want to make sure you have strong customer service within your practice, and you're there to appear as a team. You also want to make sure that you're booking that patient's next appointment before that patient ever leaves your practice. So if they have, for example, a Botox, Xeomin, or Dysport treatment, we know that that typically lasts an average of 3 months. Now, we don't like to say 3 to 6 months because that means that a patient will hear 6 months, you mean 3 months, and then the patient is disappointed. So if it lasts an average of 3 months, we'll say, and that's what you're telling your patient, that you want to make sure you're scheduling them out 3 months, their 3-month appointment. So we want to make sure that that's on the calendar and let them know that if they, want to move it by another few weeks, they can because they realize that their treatment is still lasting and they're still happy with it, they can certainly do that. But that way they have something on the calendar and they don't let their treatment go. Also, schedule them for a 1 or 2 week follow-up depending on your treatment so that you can see the results. If the results have started to kick in, you can take the after photos, and at that point, they're going to be on to the next treatment that they want. So they remembered that when they were in your practice that they learned about a microdermabrasion, and so now that you've taken care of their neurotoxin, now they're ready to talk about a microdermabrasion. This is just a few of the examples of how you can continue to bring that millennial patient back again and again. You always want to ask additional questions about their additional aesthetic goals, skincare usage, and more. So find out during that appointment, they've come in for their neurotoxin, and I just use that as an example because I know that the majority of you are providing that treatment. And so they've come in for that, but ask them, what is their nightly skin regimen? What is their morning skin regimen? Are you going to find that you're going to perform on a microdermabrasion or you're going to perform another treatment and then they don't ever wear sunscreen, or that they wash their face with Irish Spring soap? And so, of course, that the results aren't going to be as amazing as if you had them on a customized skincare regimen. You don't want to be performing a facelift on a patient and then realizing that they're doing nothing to keep up with the skin. Sure, it's tighter, but it's looking awful because they're not keeping up with the skin itself. So ask about what their aesthetic goals are and come up with that treatment plan. But also, you want to make sure that you are remaining HIPAA compliant throughout all of this. Now, tips on explaining post-procedure care. Our attention spans are shorter than ever before, and this is awful. You're going to ask why there's a picture of a goldfish. That is because it used to be that our attention spans were longer than that of a goldfish, and that is not true anymore. How awful is that? That our attention spans are now shorter than that of a goldfish. And so you think about, thanks to social media, thanks to video, it used to be that people were reading text, then they wanted photos. From photos, now they want video. And you have to keep in mind that you can't change a patient's attention span as much as you would love to try. You can't change that patient's attention span. And so you have to work with it and make sure that you are putting an effort into explaining post-procedure care in a way that they will follow it, because you don't want to perform a peel, a laser treatment, a surgery, and they are not listening to the instructions. And so after surgery, they're going, and after a breast augmentation, they're working out 2 days later, and all of their parts and their brand new breasts are bouncing around because they think that that's okay, that they're lifting something that's 35 pounds after they're having a rhinoplasty and they don't understand why they're bleeding, that they go home after having a neurotoxin and they lay down right away to take a nap and they wonder why they're having complications. And so you want to make sure you not only explain things to them in person, but you put the post-procedure care instructions in writing. Have templates that all of this can be templated. If you don't have templates already, let me know. We are more than happy to help you come up with templates specifically for your practice. You should have one for every procedure that your patients can take home. So put it in writing. Not only put it in writing, put a series of videos on YouTube, not specific to that particular patient, but what to expect and what you should know after a rhinoplasty. what you should know and what you should be doing or not doing after your breast augmentation. So, and do this on your YouTube channel for every procedure. And when you send them home with a packet of information, give them those YouTube links as well. Let them know where they can find each of these videos. So they have videos available either to stream or to download. They also have everything in writing. Repeat, repeat, repeat. And I would also encourage you to have them sign paper saying that they received their post-procedure care and that they have it. Ultimately, the millennial generation is truly a generation that we want to embrace in our practices. We don't want to say, oh, that's because this patient is only 22 years old, they don't have all that much money, so I don't really want to market to them. I've heard that a lot. But that could be an absolutely loyal patient. And remember, every facelift patient and every mom makeover patient, they were once 22. They were once young. And so you want to make sure that you're starting to market to them early, get them engaged early, and keep them throughout their lifetime and throughout the lifetime of your practice. So ultimately, this is a generation you want to embrace in your practice and can be so incredibly lucrative if you're finding them, keeping them, and treating them well. So this is where, Chad, I go back to you, and I would love to know if there are any questions. I always like to cut the presentations and the webinars a little shorter than the hour we had scheduled, so that if there are any questions, we can go ahead and ask for them. So Chad, are there any questions that we would love to have answered? Any burning moments that you can think of, or any questions you have?
So there are a couple of questions. But first, Mara, thank you very, very much. And as a millennial, you did a wonderful job. And you know, whatever bad things are said about the millennials, I'm finding more and more they're really not true. It's a matter of understanding what they're looking for and just being able to meet those needs. And they're not that much different than anybody else's. But again, thank you. It's interesting, Mara, that you mentioned the goldfish. I gave a presentation in Tampa over the weekend, and I shared that exact thing. It was actually my first thing I shared was we've gone from 20 seconds of attention span down to 8 seconds.
I know.
As humans, and a goldfish is at 9. So we have a shorter attention span than a goldfish. So
you and I have been spending a lot of time together with that knowledge, Chad. It's true.
It's great. But I do have just a couple of questions that came out. And if anybody else has a question, please submit it here on our GoToWebinar control panel, and I'll present those tomorrow as well. One of the first questions, Mara, is what are the most popular procedures for the millennials?
Sure. So you want to, and truly, it's not necessarily that they are. It depends on a couple of things. So unfortunately, the answer is it depends. There are different procedures for surgical than there are for non-surgical, and it does differ by the geographic region. So for example, in Miami, right, in South Florida, we have a client who, despite the fact that he works in a full service plastic surgery practice, they have specialists with, that they can do facial, they can do body, they can, for any sort of body, they specifically find, and this is true of a lot of South Florida, breasts and a BBL treatment, right? So the Brazilian butt lift. And so that's very, very true when it comes to the South Florida market. Looking at the New York market, I would say there's much higher as far as rhinoplasty. And not only rhinoplasty, we know a lot of the top specialists are also, for revisions are in New York City as well. And so it truly does depend on your geographic area as far as and whether you're surgical or non-surgical. So people are getting, and again, when I say Botox, Xeomin, Dysport, any of the three, they're getting them earlier and earlier, and that is still one of the top. Laser hair removal / laser hair reduction is one of the top procedures still. And then on a very low price point, the microdermabrasion as well, although that's certainly not going to be a surgical practice, nor necessarily a non-surgical practice is bread and butter. But if you are more of a, a med spa, or if you are a med spa that doesn't focus on injectables, maybe it's laser and, you know, microdermabrasion, but that could be a little bit more of your market. But the majority of them, that's not going to be your bread and butter.
Yeah. You know, one of the big ones, Mara, that I read recently and have been studying on is the vaginal rejuvenation as well as the incontinence, and being able to be treated by so many different, you know,
Yes.
device companies that are out there.
You know,
And I was with my sister down, and she's a millennial, and I was down in Huntington Beach with her and talking to her, and I asked her, I said, and we're very close. I said,
sure.
you know, hey, I said, do you pee when you laugh? She's like, oh yeah, and sneeze. And you know, she's had 4 kids. She's like, and all my friends do too.
That's probably why. Yes.
And they all talk about it. She's like, yeah, we all do. I'm like, you know, there's an easy solution for that. She's like, no way. You know, she was so excited, but those are part of it as well, and it's a very high growing trend for that procedure.
There is, and so when it comes to vaginal rejuvenation, and we have a client that's opening up in Westchester County, New York, and so she's actually a shared client. We you know, turned her on to the joy that is advice media, and so so she is opening up her practice within the next month, and that is, you know, she is focusing on cosmetic gynecology, and while it's not necessarily one of the general population's most performed procedures, I would say the only reason is that because still, just like your sister, Chad, the majority of people don't know that there are solutions. I talk with my female friends, whether it's a book club or over a drink, and they look at me and say, wait, this is actually a thing? And so I think that if practices do a stronger job of marketing, and one thing I always say too, when you're marketing, don't market the procedure, market the solution. And
yes,
so people don't want to have a needle put in their face, they want to not have wrinkles. People don't want to necessarily undergo the procedure, they want the results. They want to not urinate when they laugh or when they jump, you know, after having a few kids. And so if you market the benefits and work with your marketing team, because there are certain legal ways that you know, certain, not legal, but certain things that Google will allow you to say, certain things that Google will not allow you to say in regards to how you structure your website copy, how you structure your marketing copy as well when you're talking about things like vaginal rejuvenation. But it's becoming more and more popular. And so for those of you, excuse me, for those of you that are performing the procedure, I encourage you to really put an effort behind it when it comes to marketing. And for those of you that are not, I encourage you to look into it.
Absolutely. You know, and you referenced this earlier. It's not just the female; the male market has grown immensely. You know,
Yes.
and making sure that you're hitting that demographic where they, you know, us guys, you know, we care about our looks too. And
Yep.
so I appreciate you bringing that up in your presentation and really hitting that. Very, very important. We got 3 more questions. I think we've got time to get them all in. So
Yeah.
the other question is, how do you leverage sort of these friend referrals from these millennials? You get them into your office. Any little tips or tips or tricks that you've used or been able to implement?
So one of the things that we tell practices again and again is make sure that you don't involve in fee splitting, and make sure that you're not violating any sort of anti-kickback laws. So when you are having any sort of patient referral program, and so you can't necessarily say, if you refer this, you know, one patient, I will give you this percentage off. If you refer this, then I will do that. You can't have a tit for tat, because then it is being looked at as fee splitting, and it does fall under anti-kickback. However, we encourage you to come up with certain verbiage that will promote people organically sharing this information. And again, patients are more than happy to share that they've had these procedures than ever before. So they're no longer embarrassed to tell their friends or their family that they've had a certain procedure. And so that is the time to leverage that. So while you can't necessarily have a tit for tat, so to speak, when it comes to when it comes to referral programs, it's different than it used to be. And so and they've really cracked down on it more. But what you can do is, as you know that a new patient has been referred by a current patient, make a note in their system that they did, you know, so Sue Smith referred, you know, Molly Jones. And so you make a note in your EMR, you make a note in both of their accounts about where the patient came from and who it is that referral came from. And so next time that Sue Smith comes in and you open up and you say, it looks like Sue Smith has referred 5 patients, then you're able to say, look, Sue, as a special thank you, I would love to give you, for this treatment, I would love to give you our friends and family discount. And I encourage you to have a friends and family discount available. So that is something, and whether it's 10, 15, or 20%, and it could be different for different things in your practice. So skincare might be one friends and family discount. Non-surgical might be different than surgical as far as that friends and family discount, but that would allow, for example, a staff's mother to be referred, or if you have a receptionist that maybe is in your baby boomer demographic and she wants her daughter to come in or her son to come in for a treatment, that's when you can apply that, and you're able to give that to some of your VIP patients as well. And I encourage wording and even a postcard when a patient leaves. So wording that would be something as simple as, we would love for you to, to share your results and to tell your friends about us so that patients just like you can find us, so that you're able to spread the word. And that's how you're able to go ahead and work on them referring, and then also sharing positive reviews. And I don't even want to get into all the reviews because that's a whole other discussion, as you know, Chad.
Absolutely. But you're absolutely right. And I think your idea of this, pay it forward, help your friends, help others, and they love it, but they're already posting. And so if you're just making sure that you are reaching this generation where they want information, you're going to do a great job with that. So very well stated. 2 more questions. One is there a certain look or decor or amenities that millennials are looking for when in the office? I love this question.
Sure. So millennials are going, if you're looking to bring in the millennial demographic, there's a couple different questions within that one question. So a certain look to the office, you do want your office to have a more modern look. And so if you are a practice that, for example, has been around for 25 years and you haven't updated your office since you moved in, you're going to want to look at a simple refresh. And that could be anything from the chairs. Is it, is your carpet dirty? Is it that you have designs that maybe look like it's straight out of 1989? So that's where you want to take a look at, do you have a modern aesthetic and a modern feel to your office? And does your staff all look like they're happy to be there? Because you want your staff to all look like they're happy to be there. You want them to look like they're in matching uniforms that have your practice's branding on them. And it doesn't look like one is wearing scrubs that have bears on them from when they worked in pediatrics, and the other one has on purple scrubs, and while the other one has on black scrubs. And so you want to make sure your staff looks that they are happy to be there. Your staff looks pulled together. Your staff is smiling. And then that your office looks, and obviously look, the aesthetic in New York City is going to be different than the aesthetic, for example, in Nashville. And we've seen beautiful offices in both, very different feels, but they are both equally gorgeous. And so little touches. I would then say when it comes to amenities, simple things like have a Keurig in your reception area so that a patient, if they're waiting, they can get a cup of coffee as long as they're not coming in for surgery, correct? So, but they're able to get a cup of coffee,
Right.
offer them a glass of water. So little things like that, make sure each of the treatment rooms, we are in the aesthetic and cosmetic and, beauty business. Don't have garbage that's filled up in the trash can and it's overflowing and there's all sorts of stuff that's falling out. Make it look clean, make it look pretty, and those are the small types of things that they're going to be looking for.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, I know in our office, and we hire a lot of millennials. If we run out of our little Keurig cups for the coffee maker, it's almost anarchy around here. So we have to make sure we're always up to date with that. So, but
and
it's something to look forward to.
Yeah, if you run out of LaCroix, forget it. So one or the other, but it's that I understand. So you have to make sure that those are the simple touches.
Very much so. One final question today, Mara,
Sure.
and this is in regards to social media and the way that you end each of the posts. The question is, at the end of the social media post, a lot of practices will leave the contact information on each post. Is this necessary? And do you recommend having all the contact information on each post?
I don't believe it necessarily has to be in each post because it is in your profile. And so you're welcome to just say more, contact information in the profile, because the way that and it differs a little bit channel to channel, but some of the channels, for example, won't make it that if the phone number is in an Instagram post, it may not be clickable, versus if you go to that company's profile, a phone, they can click on the phone number. And so if you've ever tried to call when a phone number isn't clickable, and millennials are searching on their phones, so it's not clickable, they have to remember this phone number then. And what are you going to make them do? Write it down on a piece of paper before they can dial it in their phone? So I would say that if it's a social media channel where they're able to click and be directly connected to an email, click and be directly connected to a contact form, or click and be directly connected to a phone where you're able to do like a push to call, then sure, go ahead and include that. But if not, say, link in profile, contact info in our profile, so that way they know, okay, let me go to the profile. And that's where they're able to get it. Because if they have to remember that phone number or remember that email address, and it's not something that you simply click and get it right away, that's going to deter them. So that would be my answer.
And Mara, and I agree with you actually 100%. And you talked about it earlier, developing those taglines for your practice, and you may have a few different ones. One of the easiest things you can do is have your little note area on your phone or on your computer, whatever you're using, and whatever message you type, you put in there, but then it's a simple copy paste of that same group of taglines. And so you're consistent with that message, so that again, you're saving yourself time. Here it is, and people are seeing those various tags, which is important.
And Chad, one tip too for iPhone users, and then I promise we'll let everybody wrap this up. But for those of you that are iPhone users, and somebody told me this at a social media conference last fall, if you go into your settings, there is a way to make it so that within your shortcuts, there is a way to make it so that if you type in, for example, hashtag knows, right? You're then able to say, every time I start typing hashtag NOSE, right? Hashtag knows, and you can totally customize these to whatever it is that you're looking for, and totally customize it to your practice. But that way, whenever you type in hashtag NOSE, you then say, I want it to type in on an auto-populate hashtag nose job, hashtag rhinoplasty, hashtag nose surgery. So look at some of those hashtags that you're going to be using again and again. And maybe it's that you don't necessarily want it that anytime you post anything, you want, your rhinoplasty hashtags to come up, and your Botox, and your, liposuction hashtags, and all of that. But you have some, so that when you're going through Instagram and you type in on your phone hashtag NOSE, for example, all of those rhinoplasty related hashtags automatically populate. So again, it's just a simple tip and trick.
That's a great suggestion. Everyone, again, thank you for being here. And Mara, special thanks to you. I salute you. And again, I am so grateful for the friendship that we have, and for the expertise that you bring to the table. And it's always an honor to not only speak with you on these panels and to see you at these conferences, but especially to have you here today to share this valuable information. So thank you so much.
Thank you so
and again,
much.
to our attendees, thank you. With that, we will wish every one of you a wonderful second quarter. Hope that everything continues to go very well, and we will see you next month. Thank you, and have a great day.